My name is Avon, and this is First Drafts That Glow, a short story writing project by me. Now, I want to thank all of you who have been listening, who continue to show up every week. I do want to start out by saying that this will be my last episode for about 2 months. I'm going to take a bit of a break. I'm going to do some, behind-the-scenes admin kind of stuff. And I'm going to turn all the previous episodes, 1 through 24, turn them into audio podcasts. And also work on a few other special surprises for those of you who are getting a taste for my writing. And I'm just super thrilled that you keep joining me. And, I'm super happy with the interactions that I have with people online. Last week's story and this week's story, very specifically inspired by two people I kind of interact with on the reg. Last week's story, it started out as a cyberpunk cowboy kind of thing, and it ended up being, something else. There was still a bit of a cyberpunky thing going on there, but not much cowboy. I mean, it happens, right? Oh, goodness, water. All right, so for those of you who are listening on audio podcasts, this is also video. YouTube.com at firstdraftsthatglow. And for those of you watching the video, if you'd rather just download it to your phone and listen to it while you're, working out or, jogging or driving or having sex, I don't know, whatever it is you do with audio podcasts where people are just talking. All right. So yeah. Really quick, we're going to do an ad read, which is improvised. Because I don't have any sponsors. I currently am not running on Patreon. That may change in the future. I'm not really sure. But I'd rather offer you things to purchase than, say, send me money, which, if you want to, you can send me money. That is A-okay. I'm A-okay with that. Venmo, Cash App, nailsthatglow. Holler at your cat. Anyways, I have 3 coloring books that I designed with a friend of mine, Athens Cascade. They are all full pages, 50 images each, one-sided. So, if you're using markers or something, you can do that, or you can tear out a page without worrying about it. They're a larger format than a lot of other coloring books, so there's a lot of time to be spent. I myself really enjoy abstract, complicated pattern coloring books. I fell in love with them again when I went into recovery, and there's just something very zen about it all. And the third book is predicated on the number 5. I'm not really sure why that happened, but it did. And then the first 2, they're just mindful and funky. I'm kind of partial to the second book. Some of my favorite designs are in there. I've started to discover. I just passed one of them. I just passed another one of them. But they're designs like this. If you're not watching this on video, it's a whole page image of this kind of mandala that's just taking up the whole thing. Some of them have heavy black space, so you could do some bright neon and stuff. Anyways, I'm really proud of these. There are more on the way, so check those out. There are links on my website, nailsthatglow.com. You can find Mindful and Funky coloring books on Amazon. All right, just set those down there. I also have 2 journals that I designed, also for sale on Amazon. They're hardback. One of them uses the trans hat, aperiodic monotile, and the other uses the Spectre aperiodic monotile. The specter one is non-binary. The trans hat is, or the hat is trans themed. I think I said that already. I should write these down. Anyways, they're 200 pages. There's a bunch of dots inside. Up at the top is date, day of the week, and time, which, I found useful in a lot of my journals. They're also large format. So you STEM kids, if you're looking for something fun to, diversify your, workload and everything, and you want to represent some pride, there are more designs of these coming up. I'm just taking my time. Each of these designs took time to consider and, ultimately do, because, aperiodic monotiles, they're special. They really are special. And those are also on Amazon.com, links on my website. And, excuse me. Lastly, I have 3 print-on-demand shops. They all offer slightly different items. Redbubble, Zazzle, and Designed by Humans, all under Nails That Glow. Designed by Humans, it's a slower process on that one. They have a different system, and the types of items that they have don't really allow for a lot of the textures and stuff that I have, say, on Redbubble or Zazzle. Zazzle has things like car mats. Redbubble has a lot of full print shirts. And Designed by Humans, excuse me, has different kinds of shirts. And I've been told by a few people who have purchased from them in the past that it is very high quality stuff. So check those out. I am doing a digital art series using single words and a portrait, and the portraits are striking. So go check those out. All right. Goodness. I don't know, I was doing fine before I started, but now there's something in my throat. One of my neighbors is back there doing something wonky. I'm not really sure what. And one of the cats has decided to start milling around making noise. And that's Thor. And he's probably telling me that he's upset that I'm not paying attention to him right now. Because he owns me. All right. Excuse me. Goodness. Today's story, I was tasked to do a horror, and I was given a few words, 3 words, and then I looked up 2 other randomly generated words and added those. The title came out of the initial 3 words that were suggested to me. Now, when I saw the suggestions, there was a good bit of time between the suggestions and me actually sitting down and considering what I was going to write. But I think there was a seed of something as soon as I saw the suggestion, which is rare because sometimes I have to sit there and I have to just kind of meditate on the words and, build a title out of the words most of the time. Sometimes I'll pull another word from the ether if I need it, if it's not in random word collection, but all the words somehow have an impact on the story. And the horror of this story was a lot more subtle than I originally started with. I was thinking of this one thing when I started, and then as I wrote, as I've said before, the characters tell me what's happening. You can't really fight them. If you try to fight them, then the story doesn't feel right. And, since all of my stories are in the first draft state, obviously there's some, grammatical things that I slip on, and there's some things that, I could probably edit out and all that stuff, but that's why we are here. That's why I do this. I'm doing this to push myself, to experiment, hopefully to entertain you. And I'm really proud of this one because I kind of went way out of the box on this one. I uh, I'm such a huge dork for the 90s Outer Limits. I've mentioned that before. And though there's none of them that have the same kind of story arc that this one has, they're the pacing of their story, how it flows, um, how they would generally flow, I would say, and how they tended to play with the concept of identity and existence, and kind of hybridizing genres at times. It was just great stuff, like if you didn't like the Outer Limits in the 90s, what are you doing here? Because goodness. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look that shiz up. It is amazing. Top tier storytelling. Some of the acting's a bit hammy, but that's what you get with middling budget syndicated shows from the 90s. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say you get what you pay for, but there's some high quality content in there. And I really do mean high quality. Um, some of those stories I think actually influenced a lot of the movies the past 10, 15 years. But I might get into that one day on my blog. You want to hear me read a story? So, have you noticed? I cut my hair. For those of you listening and not watching, visit the website, my YouTube channel, check out my hair for this episode. I look stunning. Oh my goodness, I look amazing. I mean, look at me. I'm so cute. All right. Ooh, my glasses are all foggy. I wonder why. Like they're legit foggy. And I just cleaned them before I started recording. What is that? Did it get cold? Does that mean there are ghosts? Are there spirits about? Oh my. All right. No, that's not much better, but whatever. Okay. So today's ooh, goodness. I don't know where that tang came from. So today's story, content warning. There is horror elements. There is some mention of gore. There's some mention of deformed children and deformed youths. It's a popular theme in horror movies, and I understand that's not for everyone. So if that's not your cup of tea, now's the time to leave. Because as there isn't extraordinarily graphic material in this story, some people just aren't in this headspace to hear a story about a child that is suffering. So, having said that, where another YouTuber I watch. Oh my. I didn't start watching YouTube till a few years ago. Moving to Portland somehow made me watch more YouTube. Anyways. All right, you ready? Here we go. All right. This is Cradle and Candle, a First Drafts That Glow story by me, Avon. It is policy not to explain the mission when some details could leak to other agents before being deployed. A button with the information is handed to you in a sealed Faraday cage. You're not supposed to open it until you are on site. I once asked why we have this kind of security only to get the standard, "I'm just a trooper that needs to only worry about orders." The button and the cage fit into a secure pocket we all have installed in our chest. In my 300 deployments, I've only had one issue with this. My foam landing deployment malfunctioned, sending me into a wall with twisted steel popping out like rose thorns. The button was destroyed, and I was not at my peak the rest of that mission. Thankfully, there were 2 other troopers on that one. In the entire system, nearly all of our missions are on Terra. The Exodus, hundreds of years ago, left most of the planet abandoned. Some islands and a few megacities and arcologies remained and still thrive. They have mostly stagnated in technology and culture, though. The 2 big ones are Vatican Nation and the Verdant Vine. Both religious and very unwilling to abandon the planet, but not quite equipped to deal with the crumbling cities and aggressive wildlife. I've only met one person from the Vatican Nation. What an idiot. He was wearing an old army tank suit, painted red and white, with a giant standard showing some arcane symbol. He said it was his lord or something. Looked like a weird P with an X on the bottom. Not sure how that's supposed to be a person, but whatever works for them. I warned him the landscape was filled with lions and a new kind of bear we call stone bear. Those things are more than 3 meters tall and can run a good 90 kilometers. Kilometers? I'll say kilometers. In bursts. The fur they grow is hard like nails, hence the name. The idiot said he was searching for lost tribes of men, and his lord would protect him. Found his body in 3 different places the week I was scouting that city. This mission, I'm being sent to a place once known as Las Vegas. Originally, not a coastal city, the ocean had consumed the edges of the place and some of the buildings were fully intact. Last year, the lights came back on in parts of the city, and there have been a few concerns that it might be a new base for dissidents at worst, or a nomadic band of humans that decided to plant roots at best. I was told there would be more to it, but I had to wait until hitting within target area to read the button. The orbital station I transferred to is ancient. Just a few canister-looking pods with blooms of entry pods all over it. The ship I arrived on houses 10,000 and moves with precision. Not like this floating tube array. The entry pods were only slightly better technology. Ceramics with foam and sonic padding to let anyone drop to planet without needing a landing craft or really knowing how to fly. Just tap the 4-meter area you want to land, and that is where you will end up. I do an equipment check before Command buzzes my comms. Command always hits with a series of tones that make one this is why we're here, that make one sit up and focus. If you disable the tones, you better be in the field, else they expect you to be sitting or standing still, looking forward with your chin slightly up. I hate it. I have always had some kind of issue in my neck since the first year of service. Nobody seems to know how to fix it or make it stop. Even replacements to the area develop the same issue. One of those mysteries, I guess. The tones hit and I stand at attention in the tube right outside of the entry pod. The image of the unit mascot, the head of an elephant with tusks, and the words Stampede Corps surrounding it, followed by the face of my commander over the logo. "Candle, are you ready?" she says with her normal brisk dryness. "Yes, sir. I've checked my gear and set the landing zone. I'll board the entry pod and begin mission on your word. Oh yeah, my name. We all have names of items. The others pick animals. I think it's unfair, but it is what it is." Excellent. This is a solo mission for many reasons. We have the utmost faith in your abilities. Mission is a go. She fades off screen, followed by the tones that officially end the communication. The entry pod is large enough for 2 full-grown humans wearing survival gear and carrying packs. With my plating and gear, I just fit. There are times I think they had chosen the elephant as our core symbol because they have the capacity to carry so much. The ones I have seen could move large vehicles and tore down buildings, so it's easy to imagine ancient world animals doing similar. We are allowed whatever kind of entertainment in our system can store, and play without interfering with our duties. Movies and visual media were out because of how intricate they are. Simulations and strategy packs are all about entire attention. Many books are out because modern books also come with a pack of characters that you can interact with. So, most of us collect music. Modern music is amazingly vibrant. The most popular in my unit of the Corps is what's called solar jazz. Supposed to be a blend of metal and acid jazz. Interesting, I do not like either of those, but I love solar jazz. Our brother unit listens to candy rap, a genre that is a few hundred years old, pioneered by a drag queen punk band and a handful of rappers of the day. It shares some qualities with solar jazz, but the dense vocal layering and intentional conflicting or opposing views in each one is just not my thing. I still like Jam is Worse Than Jam. It uses solar jazz sample in it. The trip down was standard until the last few hundred meters. My readings said it was nothing, but it felt like a magnetic gun was aimed at the pod, pushing it. It was that, or I hit water hundreds of meters above sea level. The normal corkscrew of the pod changed to a tumble. The internal gyro was not designed for it, so that wasn't fun. Still not worried because the sonic and foam landing system were still active and working. 50 meters above ground, the foam system was somehow missing, and the sonic system read as 25% effective. I deployed one of my personal foam landing supply just before hitting the ground. The foam worked at keeping me in one piece. The sonic landing gear was twisted to point towards me somehow, shattering the foam off me after landing, throwing me from the crash site. Getting up, I noticed my chest pocket open along with a few other compartments. The button in the Faraday cage was gone. So was half of my music collection, but the button mattered more. After a quick inventory and equipment check, I scanned the area around the crash for the button. Best I could hope for was to find the shape of the case. The materials were light absorbing and emitted no signal. It would destroy itself if anyone but me tried to open it, and it would disintegrate in 20 hours anyway, so not worried about the security, but I still had no idea what the additional mission parameters were supposed to be. I was about 3 kilometers outside of the city, and I could see it glowing in the distance. The ocean to my left was making random sounds of seals, crabs, and newer things I was not interested in. So it was time to hit record, and walk to the city and see what I could find. A few things went in a new landscape at night, and not sure of the population is hostile or what they may be armed with. You move slowly. Everything is attention-grabbing. Those strangely white rabbits with slightly glowing red eyes streaking across your path make you want to shoot. The murder of crows that land in formation, staring you down to see if you are food, have food, or just passing through. Some of them wearing necklaces and sporting painted beaks. You never want to piss off crows. They figured out how to rally other animals, and the footage I've seen is horrifying and very unbelievable. I always carry a bag of freeze-dried corn for 4 crows if they show up. I set it down close with the string. I put string set up instead of string side up. I set it down close with string side up, showing it is for them to open. The one standing at the point of the murder with a silver beak, gold chain, and neon legs comes up, opens the bag, eats a few kernels of corn. He caws to his side, and a larger crow comes to the bag, closes it, picking it up with its beak. This one being impossibly black. No shine in the feathers at all. Then they all take off. I had been worried. Sometimes they demand more than one bag. The edge of the city was typical of most cities in this part of Terra. Massive tar paths with giant metal and plastic signs with faded letters describing distance to various parts of the city. That's why we're here. Cold reading. Yay! Sometimes there are remains of the transports they once used. Large cities like this were often scavenged for raw materials for the early orbital stations. Nothing on this road. Once I got closer to what would have been called the main or heart of the city, things felt more normal for me. The buildings were growing plants, housing various small mammals and lizards. Some of the organic glowing lights were still Some of the organic glowing lighting we still use was giving off faint glow I don't know what this sentence is. Was still giving off faint light, keeping the landscape highlighted where the moon did not hit. This is the kind of sentence that in a second pass I would have reworked. The city was rearranged a few times, changing the landscape to accommodate for the shoreline. The maps I had were all conflicting with the satellite images. Maps from records as far back as the 1950s to the large shift in building placement in 2062 after the first major quakes. The pyramid was moved. There was a giant water-themed place they called Atlantis rebuilt in front of it. And in 2230, they decided to rebuild some of the old features in concentric rings. The outer rings had buildings that seemed to be mostly travel housing and worker housing. As you went deeper, the buildings got more complicated and unique. There was an entire area overgrown with plants and animals that were from the other side of the planet. Tigers, kangaroos, and crocodiles ruled there. No lights detected. The central area with the giant pyramid and the sea palace was pristine, and where I was headed. There were some smaller areas of new lights and activity to scout on the way. I stop at a place with a sign that says Trix Mat. Some of the letters had fallen off, so I'm not really sure. The room I clear is pink and white, with old oil-based plastic chairs and tables. Good for me. I need sturdy surfaces to set my gear on. I review my mission notes, check over the maps. There's a subtle suggestion of a pattern that could be a star shape. It's not for sure, as there are other reasons there are lights in those spaces, but I cannot reason any. Some of the lights are from buildings that looked entirely unlivable in the daylight shots. Those spaces are also where humanoid shapes can be seen, but there's some kind of visual disruption keeping the image from focusing on them well. Typical terrorist technology. Only corporate assets were authorized to use such technology in the system. I decided it a good time to rest. I set up a monitor to wake me up if anything needs my attention. I eat a meal pack, let the water gel melt in my mouth slowly as I drift to my meditation slumber. Dreams are not common for troopers. Our conditioning, training, and development is so rigid from day one, our minds tend to either be entirely focused on task or in a blissful detachment when we meditate. Dreams are a sign we might need to retire or are being overworked. I know I'm close to retirement. I've kept my infrequent dreams suppressed from the central intelligence when we communicate. Tonight, my dream was unlike the rest of them. It began with me standing at a river. A basket floating in the river stops at the bank in front of me. I open it. Inside is a large cut of human chest, one of the nipples and many ribs showing through the muscles. The skin cured and tight, cut away from some of the meat underneath. No gore oozing out. almost like it was butchered for market. The smell was not unpleasant. The sound of crying comes from deeper inside the floating basket. I pick up the human chest to see a blanket wrapped around a figure. I drop the chest into the water. No splash sound is made. Slowly, unwrapping the figure, I find a human baby with skin looking like it had been exposed to a burst of radiation. The crying stops when it sees me. The baby's arms reach up at me. I pick it up and mimic the motions I've seen in various images and entertainments. The baby rests its head on my shoulders. The sky above me grows pale, filling with clouds. Then it snows. The reeds around me wilt and decay rapidly. I don't sense cold. The baby does not seem to notice either. To my right is the pyramid, and it is glowing a golden color. I feel the baby's hand on my chin. I turn to look at it. There is an awareness in his face a baby never has. The sores and exposed skull and face from the corrupted skin make it all more confusing when it says, "Now be a good boy and hurry." Coming out of meditation with a jump, I hit my head on the ceiling, causing some of it to disintegrate. After logging this experience, the sounds from outside keep me from eating. Carefully looking out of the window, I see figures. I'm unable to focus properly on them. They move like people, have the same apparent shoulder and hip placement of the average human from how they move. They also appear to have a head on a swivel from what I could gather. They were looking over some of the plants that were growing around a large concrete bowl in the central part of the tricks mat. I hear sounds of various tones, with no pattern or structure that I can detect. I set a camera, holster my weapon settings, my right gauntlet. Oh. I set a, this is another one of those sentences. I set a camera. I holster my weapons. I then set my right gauntlet to shoot stunners at each figure if it is needed. See? I just rewrote it. I climb out of the side window, walk to the back of the building, and make a small leap to the roof of the single-level structure. Counting 10 figures, one large transport that was not there the night before, and a fuzzy blur that I assumed to be a drone scanning each plant, sometimes followed by a figure going over to it to remove it. After a few minutes of this, they load into the transport and start to drive away. I set the gauntlet for a homing beacon, then landed on the transport's roof. You see, I go back and forth from truck to transport. Not sure why I was doing that. Back in the room, I read the signal until it hits the inner 3 rings. It blinks off entirely. Not a slow fade. The vehicle did not stop. The beacon was small enough to be missed by all but an augmented eye of military grade. I decided to cover parts of myself with some of the vegetation. The panels on my body and compartments in my pack became a planter for the mission. I stuck to the sides of the tar paths near to buildings as I could manage. It was an hour before I heard another transport. I curled up into a ball on the side of an old building with a sign that read 11. I set a camera on the wall above me to monitor the transport. It was similar, with a different color scheme. Obviously not a poor community, just coming out of a subterranean colony or raiders. The major cities never let limited technology they had out of their domains. This was something new. It wasn't even the middle of the day as the transport slowly drove by. Some of the blurred figures were throwing items that looked like rocks all over the tar path, and into buildings along it. One of the rocks hit me. When it struck me, I became angry. I wanted to jump up, yell fury, and shoot at them until they stopped moving. My head filled with a fire and passion. I hear the voice of the baby. Be a good boy. Before I can move, I lock my armor joints. Inside, I scream to move. There is a feeling of stress in my neck. My mouth fills with a soft grinding sound and my feet demand freedom. My entire body demands to move louder than I have heard it do before, then falling silent. Accessing the camera, I see the transport is no longer there, and it's now somehow sunset. The distortion of time and the conflict I had internally requires me to do a systems check. The first building I find that appears more or less intact was once a bar, and a temporary residence with smaller rooms and a hall large enough for the bed in it and not much else. I set up at the large wooden bar space. The wall behind me has a room filled with large metal barrels and a pool of dark water serving as home to frogs and insects. The door to get inside directly is blocked by parts of another building. Everything inside looks like it's been untouched for a dozen decades or more. I lay flat on the bar top. The small drone and 2 spiders power up as I enter meditation. I feel the first spider wrap its legs around my throat and the second on my solar plexus. The drone buzzes softly from my forehead to my feet. I know it slowly moves down as to my feet and back. To my feet and back. I drift. 2 things are never supposed to happen when you are in a systems check meditation. Thought is both of them. The commander does try to be funny at times. As I feel myself disconnect from my core self, I begin to think. I begin to think of the baby. Now, I do not notice I am thinking at first. I'm inside a large stone room, tan and blue all around, gold glowing accents with some kind of song in the distance. The baby is in my arms. I'm standing before a cradle. Put me in the fucking thing, moron, the baby snaps. I kiss the baby's forehead before setting it softly in the cradle. Its skin, still unsettling and somehow worse in some way. I can't pinpoint how. The sores might be moving. I can't be sure because I'm stuck looking into the vacant but aggressive eyes of the lump of radiation-soaked flesh. Something in my chest reaches up my throat. I feel a tension in my jaw and some kind of weight behind my eyes. My head feels heavy as my chin gets closer to my chest. There's a feeling of my mouth on the sides I'm unfamiliar with. Feeling like I'm pressing my lips hard together, pulling the ends of my mouth down. Something is wrong with my cheeks. My throat tells my mouth to open, but no sound comes. The baby motions me closer, then says, "You're trying to cry, so why don't you cry?" I try to tell the baby I've never cried. Not sure I've ever frowned or felt whatever it is supposed to be in my throat. It's impossible to tell the baby these things. I give up quickly, bringing my palms up to my face. The metallic shell I'm covered in feels cold. It feels cold on my face that is almost always wearing a panel that completes the helmet I wear. Not sure if I'm touching my face or the panel. The edges of my eyes feel damp. There's something salty running from my nose. My nose. It has an air tube fitted into each nostril. There's no way it would be leaking. The sound of grinding and thunder shake the ground. The baby, not in the cradle. A panic feeling overwhelms me. Scanning the room, I see a large chair with the skeleton of a person with bits of gold and white fabric on the ribs and pelvis. The skull is holding a strange headdress that looks like a collection of tiles in blue, white, and gold. Some symbols in neon green and pink light up. They're blurred as they begin to take shape. The skeleton then goes blurry as it stands, and I hear the baby again. You are taking too long. I thought you were a good boy. The spiders rehousing themselves in the gauntlets sends an alarm to wake me. The drone, still hovering, waiting. Sitting up, I feel at my head. The panel is still there. My hands are fully armored. Nodding to the drone, it spins in place. A display of measurements of all of my equipment, my internal and external status. The scan of my mental and physical state of being all read normal. The only anomaly is a registering of a voice. System, can you decode what those words are? I hear the positive chirp before the words show up below the waveform. It reads, I thought you were a good boy. System, confirm this reading and recheck that all scanning systems report normal. Getting up to pace in the open space of the bar, my footsteps thud. I access my top 10 playlist and have it played to the dermal headphones. The double kick and sax bring me back as the warring strings find agreement. Everything goes calm and slower. The rush in my core vanishes. The chirps from the display show everything is working. I decide it is going to be a waste of time to rest. I eat 2 food packs and head back out after refreshing the plant matter on my pack and shell. Outside's very dark. The area I am in does not have as much of the organic glowing material, and some of the buildings of the inner rings are starting to cast long shadows. I pick my way through a few destroyed homes and seacraft, imagining what could have caused a yacht and a few whales to end up so far inland in one piece to leave bones here. A comical image of a man wearing plaid, some blue pants, and a large hat lays on its side, blocking my way to get through without climbing. The torso and hat space of the side of the image has a series of nests on it. The area with the plants seems to be clear. There's some structural concerns, but the look of the surrounding buildings and them being nearly 80 meters tall themselves, this is likely the best way to get through. I set my legacies to jump a bit higher. Jumping, I land on top of the figure. Was hoping to clear it. Just as I land, it gives, dropping me backwards to where I jumped from. The clamor I make as I land only partially softened by the emergency foam my onboard system releases. I hear new sounds. First is the murder of crows. A black cloud hovers above me. The same silver-beaked crow zips by my face before launching itself back up. The murder vanishes. I hear a roar of some kind, followed by the sound of a dozen crows. A few more roars, then more crows. The murder shows up again. The leader lands at my feet, then pecks twice and hops back. I only have food packs. Is that going to work? I ask. Sideways head movement is followed by a hop and a few flaps. I lay 2 food packs down. The crow calls over 2 others. They work together to open one of the packs and sample the contents. Another call and a small cluster appears and carry away the food packs. The crow flaps its wings towards me. I back up a few steps. From the ruined building to my left, a crocodile, 6 meters long, comes out, looks at me, then pushes at the comical human figure blocking the road, knocking it over. It roars to the sky, then slinks away without much noise. I wait a moment, then hear crow calls. I continue down the road. Another few hours and the sun starts to rise. I start to think of the baby again. I've never seen a baby in real life. I've never known of a human that has been exposed to radiation on that level for as long as I can recall. I pause to eat. The sound of a transport has me rushing to a pile of rubble. I roll myself into a ball as I cover myself with as much of the ruin as I can, leaving the vegetation covering the rest of me. I forget to set a camera this time. I start to hear the trainer tell me to reset the test. Do it 10 more times as a reminder to never forget to do something. I hear the same sounds, the same clunks of hard items. Why didn't I not try to find out what they were throwing before? It takes about 20 minutes for them to move out. I hear them walking near me. The sounds I assume are words going high and low, following the pattern of conversation when people laugh and then go somber for work. Could also be that I'm just seeing a pattern where there is none. When the transport sound starts up and disappears, I get up. Right next to where my head was, a footprint. A perfect human footprint. Toes the right shape and not oversized or exceptionally small. I follow the footprints until I see a dent in a metal sign and an irregular impression on the dirt below. The space looked as if an object had been thrown, hit the sign, then the ground. And the feet show someone walked up to the object. I see finger grooves suggesting they picked it up. Now, was this a game of some kind, or was this a game? This is why we're here, okay? Because when you're cold reading, your brain does funny things. Was this a game or some kind of scanning technology I was aware of? None of that mattered. I was not that far from the central area. The path felt more carved out this close. There were parts that seemed recently cleared and harvested for materials. Areas where things were shoved aside and areas where it seemed the contents of the space were just lifted and moved somewhere, not close by. I reach a ring that the maps described as the market ring. There was a wall of a single structure with dozens of unique facades every few dozen or so meters. There was a large mouse-shaped gate to my left and a serpentine building curling around to my right. The sun had finally set and the organic elements were thick here, giving the feeling of early morning light all over with dozens of colors. The storefront I was looking at had the letters I imagined spelled storm, but it did not fill the entire space. There were oil plastic human figures in the windows in various positions, none of them standing. The glass panel was gone. Inside there were insects and odd fish-like things crawling the floor and walls. There were shelves filled with rotting glass fiber and oil plastic clothing. The occasional mummy and dog skeleton next to a pile of clothing that looked like it might have tried to provide a meal. A hallway of mirrors in various stages of clear and shattered. I begin to hear talking. Checking my scanners, no sound. I recheck as the sound starts again. First as loud as a whisper, then loud enough for me to hear clearly, "Hurry up!" But there was nothing in the readings. Looking around, I see something on one of the mirrors. The spider in my right gauntlet activates. I point to the mirror. It sends back a clear signal. The first few steps towards the mirror, I see my reflection, the soft lights in my helmet, and the active systems reflecting pale back to me. A few steps more, something changes. I see what might be my face, but the features, they're unclear. Everything I'm wearing dissolves to show a much smaller figure in the same position. Another few steps and the blurred figure gets thinner, and the color changes to the same of the baby I've seen. Parts of my mind fill in what is behind the blurred barrier. A body filled with burns from radiation exposure, sores, torn and ruined skin, the smell of acrid soreness and infection. Another few steps and the figure becomes clear. My face. Or what I remember as my face. Something's not right with it. There's a fullness and a contentment to the face. Last time I saw my face, I was checking my system and replacing seals and panels. I had to replace the power cell for my heads up display last time as well. The face I was looking at looked like the commander's, but not quite. Never had I thought about what things were like before I became a member of the Corps. The sound of the child's voice comes out of my mouth as I'm looking at myself in the mirror. Be a good boy and hurry. I shoot the mirror. The concussive sonic wave turns the mirror and the wall behind it to dust. It had to have been a projection or some kind of deception tactic I have not been trained in. Like whatever's going on with this baby, this voice. Some kind of enemy tactic. My system demands a food break. I open the first pack, losing control of my hands. They feel wrong, slippery, soft. I'm unable to open the packs. I close my eyes to breathe in a pattern. I center myself. Opening my eyes, I'm in a white marble room. The lighting is coming from every surface. It glows, almost blinding my ability to see. My right hand is taken. No need to look at me, just look ahead, the voice says, sounding like the baby, but kinder in a way. Before me is another cradle. There's also a blob of light inside it. On the other side of the cradle is a person obfuscated entirely by light. Who are you? Trying to sound commanding and falling short, I say, I demand to know why you are in this area. Who gave you authorization? I feel my right hand being squeezed. Behave. You are a good boy. Don't ask questions. Just do as you are told. In the cradle, the blob of light flickers. I hear the figure on the other side say something. The same toneless and unintelligible sound from the people in the transports. The sound gets louder and louder. I look to my right and see a teen, covered in the same sores and ruined skin as the baby. Frowning, it says, I told you not to look. I open my eyes and see myself falling onto a case with... I open my eyes to see myself falling onto a case with a glass shell. My foam activates. It prevents the glass from finding its way into my plating and keeps the rest of my body from injury. The vegetation needs replacing, as it's all dried out. It's brown and crisp. My system tells me I've been down for a week. There was a heat storm that lasted a few days. I was put into preservation mode to conserve resources. The highest reading was over 70 Celsius. The max operating was closer to 40. After eating 3 food packs and a quick check of all systems, it was time to move. It was one more ring until the center one. The next ring was listed as the entertainment ring. The 3 signs visible, there were 3 signs visible. The one on the left read, Hot Sauce and Hot Ass. The center, Movies Forever. The one on the right, Emporium of Punishments. Each of them well preserved and cleaned. This must be the outer wall, I said to myself. How could I be sure they did not see me already? I was not thinking I should stick to the shadows still. I just walked up. No reason for it either. It goes against my training. A step towards the Movies Forever doors. My feet sink into the tar path. It was liquid. The surface texture looked like the rest. It became hard to move. I feel the substance getting into the panels, keeping everything around my feet from moving properly, locking it up. I set my gun for a short boost. Set it on my back panel, locking it in place. Using my hand commands, pull the trigger. The burst moves me to the surface of the tar, and I move myself to the white stone path in front of the doors. I have to freeze and shatter the tar off my feet, then each panel. Some of the components in the shins and calves have to be discarded after I cannibalize them to get the ankle and foot pad to working status again. The door to the movie place are automatic. As I step closer, they open. A rush of wind, my panels detect a number of smells I do not catch. All I smell is oil and sugar. I get readings of human, dog, cat, and some examples of smells of behaviors of all of them. The system predicts there are 200 people in this building section alone. Leveling my gun, I walk to what appears to be the main hall. The first door I pass is blocked up with a sign I cannot read. The text is blurred. The next door has small bits of sound escaping, heavy bass, some music. I open the doors. Nobody looks towards me. 50 or so people transfixed on the screen, larger than anything I've seen. Colored light being cast onto the screen and speakers lining the wall and also behind the screen. The images displayed are figures that look like people hand-drawn and slightly deformed in a pleasant way. They move fast, talk fast. There are a number of flashes and explosions. Everything stops for a moment as one of the people stands still. It looks like a man with black hair, torn orange shirt. His friends are comforting him. It shows another character floating in the sky, laughing. The guy on the ground leaps back in the air, then explodes into a burst of gold, changing his hair color. I feel a tap on my back. Excuse me. You are supposed to be the good boy, is that correct? What is? I stammer, following the blurry figure out of the dark place. Please, keep walking down this way and exit the doors you find at the end. I realize the voice I hear from the blurred figure is mine. A part of me yells, telling me to kill the creature. Another part demands we ask questions. That part wins, says, "We are a good boy." But it wasn't a question. The double doors at the end of the hall don't automatically open. The bar in the center depresses slightly, making a clunk sound, opening with minimal effort like it wants to be pushed. It takes me time to process what I see. The images we had were that the Atlantis Palace had fountains were in front of the pyramid. It was actually built into the front of it, either by extension or original design. I felt like I was looking at a dragon of some kind when I saw the structures like this. There were things flying in the sky, things swimming in tanks, so clear and clean tanks, swimming in tanks, clean and clear water that rised above the ground for dozens of meters. See, typos, grammatical errors, first draft problems, right? I'm funny. I'm totally funny. The pyramid was capped with gold, and that was glowing golden light on the white glowing palace below. The animals were clear. I could see them with no problem. My system was able to zoom in, enhance, and identify some of them. Seagulls, cardinals, falcon, condor, owls, and more, all flying around in defiance to records listing them as extinct. The tank I could see an orca, some dolphins. There was a shadow I assumed to be a blue whale, but the tank couldn't be big enough for that, could it? 4 figures walk up to me, all blurred. The weapons they held were clear as day. One of them disarmed me with more force than a person should be able to without a suit like mine. They removed my pack and activated the spiders and the drone and took off the front panel of my helmet. My eye caps and nose plugs and mouth shield were all left. I listened to them buzz. One of them pointed at my feet, another pointed at some of the vegetation. We entered the central door of the palace. Everything went more blurry. There was a smell I couldn't place, something sweet, but also foul, but it betrayed what I was seeing. Bright, clean, beautiful, all around me. Why did I smell rot and the smell of meat gone bad? The space inside felt longer, larger, more grand than what I had seen outside. There were blurred figures working on the walls, painting images of other blurred figures in the gardens and in libraries and halls filled with tables laden with food. There has only been the suit, the panels. There was never a time that anything close to what I was seeing on the walls. And there was never a time that was anything close to what I was seeing on the walls. There we go. The floor and ceiling was also painted. Just as we approached large doors, I looked down and saw a shape. It was me. Standing next to me was the child, covered in sores and destroyed flesh. Parts of the face were missing, and the eyes had no lids, and there was only a few patches of hair and no sign of what makes anybody human. A taste of heat fills my throat. I begin to feel my mouth fill with wetness. When the doors open, a new wave of contentment and wonder overtake me. A grand room, large enough to hold hundreds on the floor, and a balcony above us for hundreds more. The other end of the room, a raised platform above about 13 steps up. A stone table in the center, and a grand door behind that. I was led through that door. It was quicker this time, like I was being rushed. I could feel the hands grip tighter through the panels I wore. The texture of the walls and floor changed slowly. The white stone gives way to the tan and brown of the pyramid, and the rich blues and the gold accents distract me as they glow slightly, like neon. We stop at the edge of a central chamber that sinks as far down as it goes high. A diamond shape in the center of the massive pyramid. A walkway going from the edge to the center. In the center, a circle with a stone table. Torches all over, highlighting what the soft glowing gold and blue didn't reach. Some of the figures were not as blurry to me. It was still hard to look at them. I started to notice a person next to the stone table on the central platform. Something familiar about them. Each time I touched this thought, the smell of something wrong would distract me. I started to notice the rotting smell was more like fish and shit mixed together. Dried urine and caked vomit. I saw a few fires heating large cauldrons. Some of the figures were throwing things into them. Each time, the wave of the smell got stronger. As I was led to the central platform, the figure there became clear. It was the young person covered in sores and slowly bleeding and oozing pus from all of the wrong places. One of their eyes was decayed, and there was part of their nose missing. Teeth exposed as if they were in a permanent smile, but it was absence of lips. I tried to walk back and shake loose from the people holding me. They were something more than that as well. The one on my right had a face that might have been a lobster if it were not for the lips and shoulders of a man. One on my left had a fish-like face with rotting coral growing from its head in random spaces. The one ahead of me had squid tentacles for legs and arms and a gorilla-like chest and face. The youth next to the stone table motioned for me to approach the table, saying, "Now be a good boy and get on the table." I wish I could explain it. I was happy to do this. I was elated to lay down on this brown stone in this odd building with these creatures around me. The youth pets my head. "Do you know why you're here?" Shaking my head, I try to talk as the youth cuts my throat. "No talking. You might ruin it." Nodding to the others, I feel tendons in my legs and arms expertly cut, smelling the burn of flesh, noticing the same for my throat. Shock. Shock must have delayed this. "When was your first memory?" the youth says. "You know what it was, right? You were at training, being told how to behave, how to use your gear, like a good boy." Saluting, the kid marches in a goose step. "Would you believe that I am 200 years old? No? Well, I am." Moving around the table, reaching under the top, producing a book. "See, when I was born, they were still working out the bugs. They also were not using the proper shielding for a lab in space, hence this lovely face." The youth grunts and snarls. The lobster comforts the kid. "Thanks." Now, they still had some ethics, so, in place of just putting me in an oven or shooting me into space, they sent me here to die. Get eaten by something or even starve. Great people, right? Opening the book, flipping through the pages, the kid laughs a bit. "But you see, I landed and stumbled across this book. These three lovelies were waiting for me, you see," motioning to the three creatures. "So we came to this place. We knew we could find the right structure and a place that would catch the attention of my creators to get you." Frowning, the kid looks at me, then smiles again. "Well, we were not sure who it would be, but when you got here, we connected to you pretty quick. We had to make sure you were kept curious enough. If you saw fish people, you would have called for evac that first day. We couldn't have that, so we cast a spell." The kid pulls a long bone knife from somewhere. I could not tell. "Now, you are here, and we can finally finish the ritual to crack the egg and bring the madness to the surface, like it has been trying to do for so long." A few voices made a sound that I can only assume to be a cheer. The kid looks up and around. "Yes, we finally have a child born from the science of the beast and the tools of the godless. We finally have a man of unnatural life that will be our key to unlock the door to our Lord." The voice echoes around like a wave. I feel like it gets louder the longer it lingers in the air. "Okay, well, we are ready. Thank you for being a good boy." I see the knife plummet down where I assume my heart would have been. The kid begins to speak some words that seem impossible for a human throat to produce, let alone a mouth with no lips. The entire place begins to shake. I see the kid move away. I hear cheering and clanging of metal on metal. I feel oil shower on me, then dust from the top of the pyramid. As the golden top crashes through, landing on me, I hear a sound. The sound shakes me deep inside. It causes me to linger as I lay crushed in the inverted pyramid. I know I'm dead, but I'm still hearing the sound. It speaks to me in a way I'm not familiar with, but it feels like home. It beckons me to be a good boy and join it in the depths of the labyrinth. I agree. What'd you think? Was it creepy enough? Was it creepy enough? See, I like this story. Now, obviously, there's some, issues with some grammar, and I think I mix up my tenses. But you know, all being said, writing a story in one sitting is a pretty massive task. It is. And writing a story with a beginning, middle, and end, and have it all be sensible and logical in some way. Um, I feel I've gotten much better at this. And when I do sit down to actually, you know, uh, do a story and do revisions and stuff like that, I feel the basis that I have built, with these 30 short stories, just writing them, from the seat of my pants and then cold reading them, you know, I feel I've gotten something that I didn't have before. And, everybody has their own methodology of writing and approaching storytelling. And, right now, this is mine. And it is very fun for me. And I really hope you like that story. I mean, sure, it was disturbing. Like, I creeped myself out when I was finishing it. I'm like, oh my God, what am I writing? But I also made sure to leave some things like entirely ambiguous. The world building, uh, I was trying. I feel that I was trying, and I pretty much succeeded in describing a positive future, more or less. People are thriving off Earth. There's a corporate military that does missions. I mean, you're going to have a military, you're going to have like, corporate interests and stuff like that, you know. Um, but there are people thriving in the solar system. But if somebody's, letting Ulu out of the, I got to do the click Ulu out of its egg, um, all bets are off for everybody in the system. But I also avoided from naming it, Ulu, or anything like that, because there are a lot of optional thoughts that you could have there. The soldier could have malfunctioned. The soldier could have, just been, having a fever dream. You know, after they landed, they might have just been, you know, dying. Who knows? What was in the button? What was the extra mission parameters that, Candle didn't get to read? Who knows? You get to fill that in for yourself. When I come back to this, because this is another one that I feel like I'm going to come back to, I might have some of the trooper's life before being deployed as part of the story. Because the idea that a early version of the soldier is the one that's causing or is behind, the mischief, so to speak. I could mind that. I mean, it's good, right? Like, it's nice. Yeah, you know? But I don't want to keep you for much longer. Um, you know, just remember Mindful and Funky coloring books on Amazon. I have journals on it on Amazon. These are great. I love these. And you should appreciate that I'm not writing in these so I can show them to you. I really want to write in these. Um, visit me, nailsthatglow.com. You can email me, firstdraftsthatglow@gmail.com. Um, I also have another podcast, Abstractions That Glow. My podcast should be available, on all of the big platforms. I think they're now showing up on Apple Podcasts. Somebody told me that they weren't. I had to do a few things, do the hokey pokey, and I turned myself around. I don't know why I just said that, but fuck Apple. I don't like you guys. But a lot of people use Apple products, so, I'm available on that. Um, and I keep a nightly blog, that talks about my journey as a trans feminine person, and also my experiences being sober, and thoughts and explorations of my past, and just things that I'm thinking about. If you're interested in that, nailsthatglow.com. I try to post at 10 p.m. every night. Sometimes I don't get around it till 11. I don't know why. But I don't write the entries early. I do them daily. And yeah, there's a selfie. Very rarely do I skip the selfie. And, it's all there for you, baby. While I'm gone this next 2 months, I will still be doing Abstractions That Glow. Listen to that, listen to all my old episodes, go through all of my old posts. I do want to remind you that you, yes, you're beautiful. You are. Every human is beautiful. Every human is. Everybody has beauty within them. Everybody has, just such amazing energy, and we all love you and want you to stay around. And, if you ever want to holler, I'm your cat, It might take me a minute or two to get back to you, but, I'll do my best. And, I love you, and I'm sure there are other people that love you too. And all of that